Last year I decided that my Space Marine 1 needed new feet and part 2 needed a weapon to go with it, because when I went to my first con I just had a big chainsword and it was really badly made, but I just needed to make something quickly the day before, so I just shoved one together. It worked okay, but ultimately I wanted a giant chain axe, and that's what this is. Now, this here may look big and tough and relatively threatening, but I made this thing, one, to fit in a car so I can transport it, because it is actually bigger than me. It's about 6'5" in height. You can't get through a door, you've got to bend it forwards. And part 2, it completely dismantles. The biggest part is actually this staff, and I've hidden so many mistakes on this. So first off, to dismantle this thing is I've got to take the chains off. Now these chains don't do anything structural, they just look cool having chains plus a giant axe, as that is. So first thing, when I put these on, I put a half link into the plastic and glued it in, the same as I did with my Dragon Slayer. And that's literally just a single link cut in half. And then I've got one there, and one down there, and one up there on the other side. And it wraps around and just links. Now this link has a cut there, so you can just take it off. And same on this one. As you can see, I've wrapped them around quite extensively, but that cut's in the wrong place, and this one is backwards out. So that's the chain link. Now, while I'm doing it on painting technique, this entire thing is undercoated in silver, as in this type of silver. It's why it's got that reflectiveness to it. Now, I used this while making my Marine because you can get different textures and patterning by using different painting techniques. Now, this one actually is the closest description there is candy apple, and I know that that stuff actually works better. Now, the idea is you put a really reflective layering with the proper one. You use chrome. In this case, I'm just using this chrome-ish paint. Then I sprayed purple over it, like that. So all of that there is airbrushed, and everything underneath is just chrome painted by hand. Then after you do that, or after I did that, I added in this mark of chaos. That was a stencil that I then airbrushed over with Umbra, because I just used that for a variation of brown for some reason. And I just spray painted it on so it looks like it's been burnt at some point. And these rivets are googly eyes. I got loads of them and just glued them all on. And this gold is just gold paint painted on. Okay. Now to disassemble this, I've got this bit of plumbing attachment here. Surprisingly, the plumbing attachment doesn't actually show up in pictures, which even I was surprised by. But this main staff, if you can't see the early mistake, I used this thickness of pipe, and then that just looked really silly with the size of the axe head. So I stuck a bigger pipe over it and actually just hot glued the bigger one over the first one. But that central pipe I filled with expanding foam just to give it a little bit more strength, because I mean this entire thing weighs 1.5 kilos, but it's still a lot for something like this to hold. Now this was painted over silver, same as all the others. You can see I didn't prepare it properly because there's little scratches by there where they're starting to go through the paint, but it looks okay. And then after that, on the final pass, I went over that with umber and just made it look a little bit rusty. So it just looks a bit older. And yeah. When I filled the pipe for expanding foam, I drilled loads of holes along the length and filled each section individually. And it needed to stay outside for quite some time before that was not a disaster anymore. Let's put those attachments away so I don't lose them. I may want to use this thing again sometime. Now, the main body of the axe head, again, this is pretty big. I mean, compared to a person, I mean, that's my arm. So, that's my forearm. Fitting this into a car is still quite a challenge, especially when you've got a whole marine to go in with it. So, I also have this. And that is as small as I can break it down. But this whole thing holds together because I've got a plumbing fixture here, which is a joining piece, which is supposed to put two bits together. In the center, there is a ring which stops you sliding the pipe through. I just went in with a what's that thing called? Okay, I went in there with a file and I just filed out the center, and then that means I can just slide a pipe through it. And this one on the end has a bigger attachment for the end of it and smaller on the inside, and I left the lip there just for end of travel. So when it goes, it slides all the way up, then it just goes dunk and stops. Of course, it's not that easy to do straight off. And this is literally just a box that was made with a hole the size of that in it and the two holes he formed. And for construction on this, it is foam core, just one layer thick going round as an outside box, one layer thick of foam core on the inside, which is that bit there, and then covered over with paper mache. The paper mache is just to hide the gaps that I left in the foam core. Again, last year wasn't a good year for me, and I essentially just gave up at several points and just went, okay, I'm going to go back to the most basic techniques I know, and surprisingly they still worked well. So again, just googly eyes as rivets, and this is just cardboard stuck around and painted. Ow! Ah! That's my nail! Ow, stabbed my own hand. Okay, and these bits on the back are just cardboard folded into a V shape and then hot glued down. I mean, all of this is hot glued together. That's all I've been using for these things. So, but when I hot glued it down, I left it in thick lines like that, and that's just so it looks like it's crudely welded on. It just looks better. And as I discussed before, that's just half a link stuck inside the box. I drilled it in for that, but there's almost nothing to that construction. This here is the main axe head. This was made with almost exactly the same construction technique as this. I basically drew it all out onto a piece of paper to get the full size of it. Then made this section out. I just cut this section out, copied it twice onto foam core, so I've got a top and bottom. Inside I've got ribbing, which literally is just foam core sheets that just go like that. On the inside, there may be one across there as well, just to finish it off. Like this, you can actually see the foam core that it's made out of. And these bits here, there are two inserts inside, which are again the plumbing joiners, which is made to the right pipe size for the main staff. And I filed the little lips out of them as well, so you can just slide the pipe through. So when you align these joiners and the ones in this, you then get one solid hole going through, and the pipe holds them all together, which is how it all holds together when it's, you know, connected and being used. The detailing here, like the arrows, were just cut out of cardboard, and same there with googly eyes stuck on. These spikes are just 4 triangles of foam core again, and they were made into pyramids. Then I cut the bottom to match the curvature of the thing. Now, the only thing that I've actually done here that is remotely different than just cutting and sticking is to get a curved piece of foam core like this. I got a piece to the right length to go down to the bottom. I then soaked it in water. It's about 5 minutes, but the cardboard around the foam goes soft, which means that you can bend it without it cracking and snapping, and without tearing apart. Now, if you don't want it to be doing things like that, sorry, bleeding antivirus. Okay, so because I don't want it to be cracking or snapping, I just wetted it. Then when it was wet, then held it in shape until it had mostly dried off, and then glued it down and then let it finish drying, then stuck the top on top of that. So hold it all together, and that's how I ended up with the curved pieces, because that's on a solid piece of foam core as well, as is all of this nonsense back here and down there. And trying to do that, and trying to do stuff like this is almost impossible without actually wetting it. It's one of the best techniques I've ever found out about foam core. So once I had all that, I covered it all in paper mache. This section here, because it has to slide inside there, and I have them quite tightly fitting, I actually refrained from putting on too much paper mache, just enough to get inside. But here I've gone quite a bit thicker, and again, I was lazy at the time, and I've left a lot of lumps where I shouldn't have, but it does make it look more beaten and more menacing. And it's literally do the same on the other side, and then that's it. That's how I made it. Now, for the paper mache, I used old newspapers and children's PVA glue. I know, sounds silly, but that's what it was. And we had a nice hot summer, so I could leave them outside and dry. Now again, you can see on some of the rivets, I've just been lazy and not bothered painting them when I airbrushed over. Because when you're painting, and I wanted the reflectiveness underneath, it's got to be airbrushed on, because if you just hand paint it, it goes on too thick and you lose a lot of that effect. That's about it. So that is my marine axe. It's pretty big, pretty cool, works well. Hopefully something here has been helpful. If you want to make a giant axe, which it is absolutely stupid in scale, this is a way to do it. And I mean, it weighs nothing. That's one finger. Hopefully I'll see you again when I actually start making prop videos properly. Bye.